Hi, everybody. Welcome to TGCS. My name is Tim Gallagher, and today we are going to be discussing AP Computer Science A, Topic 4.2, Introduction to Datasets. In this video, we'll discuss patterns and algorithms that involve datasets found in everyday life using written language or diagrams. Let's get started. So, what is a dataset? It's a collection of specific pieces of information or data. And data sets can be manipulated or analyzed to solve a problem or perhaps answer a question. Now, data can be represented in a diagram or by using a chart or a table. And this visual representation of data can be used to get a better idea of what algorithms might be used or how we want to manipulate or analyze that data itself. So, can you make your own data sets? Of course, you could do surveys and collect information from your peers, but there are lots of data sets available for you out there for free on the internet. I've listed a few sites here. The US Department of Education College Scorecard is a great way to get information about colleges that may be very relevant to you. Data.gov, Kaggle.com are good locations for free data sets. Also, Google has a data set search that you can used to find data sets about practically anything in the world. Now, a couple of things to note when you do download some of these data sets. A lot of them can be very overwhelming, lots of information. So you might need to spend some time trimming or cleaning that data just to get the specific information that you want to use. And preparing that data can be a major time commitment, just something to consider. Also, don't forget, as we talked about in the last video for 4.1, consider appropriate use and privacy issues anytime you're using data that you collected off the internet. All right, so let's talk about what format is this data going to be in? Well, there's lots of different formats that your data sets can be in. One of the more common ones is something called a CSV file, which stands for a common or comma separated values. Now, this is a format where it separates data items using a delimiter. In this case, a delimiter is a special character that separates the data elements themselves. And in this case, we're going to use a comma in our CSV file. So let's look at a sample CSV file that I downloaded from Kaggle.com, or at least part of one. So this is a data set that I'm interested in. I live in Florida, and it's Atlantic hurricane tracks from 1851 to 2017. And you'll notice that the top of the data set contains our column headers. It has the storm ID, observation dates, the times, the storm type, the latitude, longitude, other different information. And you'll also notice that the data in this particular set are separated by commas. So all of the different, we know where one data element ends and the next one begins. Now, with a CSV, separated value file, you can load that directly into a spreadsheet. Here it is loaded into a spreadsheet. You'll notice it has the column headers and all the information. And this makes it maybe a little easier to see. But this, I'm not going to scroll through all the data right here, but this is a very large data set. In fact, all we can see right now are the hurricanes that occurred back in 1851. If you look at the second column there, obviously from 1851 to 2017, there's going to be a lot of data, a lot of information there. So I may want to trim the data set. Maybe I'm going to want to compact some information. Maybe we want to make sure that there's not individual data elements that are missing, and maybe we want to put some default values in there as well. So when we trim and clean the data down, here we have just the year and the storms and how many storms there were and how many hurricanes and major hurricanes there occurred for each year. So we summarized the data from each year as well too. So what can we do with this data? Well, we can look to see, are there some trends? Are there maybe some years that had more or fewer hurricanes than others? Maybe I'll need to get another data set and put together that information. So maybe combine two data sets. Maybe I want to look at one to see perhaps the cost of hurricane damage, and then combine that with the other data and information that I have here and make some conclusions or analysis based on the combined data sets. So can we write programs to process and analyze this data? Well, yes, that's actually what Unit 4 in AP Computer Science A is going to be all about. We're going to be analyzing and manipulating this data using algorithms and data structures that we'll learn later on in this unit. All right, so let's practice a question here. So multiple choice question. A student surveys their peers about the average daily number of hours that they worked at their part-time job, the average number of hours that they slept each night, and the average number of hours they spent playing video games each day. And so the results of the surveys are below, or maybe part of the survey here. So you notice we have their names, we have the hours working, the hours sleeping, and the hours playing video game. So here's a question. Which of the following questions would not be answered using this particular data set? Go ahead and hit pause here and take a second on this question, see what you think. Which question cannot be answered by using this data set? Ready? All right. Did you answer B? What is the maximum number of hours spent by a person playing video games on a single day? So let's look at the other answer, the other questions. Can we determine who spends the most time playing video games each week? Yes, we can look at the average hours playing video games. It looks like Joey in this case plays 5 hours of video games a day. So we can determine who spends the most time playing video games. What about C? Can you determine how many students work at least 10 hours per week? Well, we know how many hours they work per day, and we want to then maybe multiply that by 7 and see on average how many of those students work at least 10 hours. And then can we see how many students average over 7 hours of sleep per night? Sure, we can look at all the ones in that column to see the ones that are greater than 7. But B says, what is the maximum number of hours spent by a person playing video games on a single day? We don't have that information. We have average hours per day, but we don't know what's the longest streak any of these people had sitting down at one given time playing video games for a single stretch. So we don't know the answer to B based on the data that we have. How'd you do? All right. All right, so in this video, we introduced using data sets. We discussed what a data set is, where we can find data sets on the internet, and then we also discussed cleaning or trimming our data and the types of analysis we can perform on these data sets. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you next time. Take care.